Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to those joining us from the West Coast. My name is Homira Osman, and on behalf of Muscular Dystrophy Canada, I'm very happy to welcome you to our webinar from our new Let's Talk NMD, Let's Talk Neuromuscular Disorder series. Before I introduce today's topic, I would like to mention that we have muted all participants, but I welcome you to type any questions or comments throughout today's session in the chat box, or you can type it into the live Q&A box. Please note a recording of today's webinar will be available by the end of the week on our MDC YouTube channel. Today's weekly webinar is on home assistive technologies. This is an important topic as we know individuals with neuromuscular disorders prioritize living safely and independently in their homes. We are very grateful for Lise Blue, who will be sharing trusted and evidence-based information and case examples on smart home and environmental controls. Lise graduated from McGill University in occupational therapy in 1984. At that time, she worked in an adult neuro rehab center, and there was very limited assistive technology options available. Electric typewriters were relatively new. But Lise did not shy away from less than user-friendly solutions by today's standards to help her patients. After working for several years in home care, Lise accepted a position in augmentative communication in 1997 at the Stan Cassidy Center for Rehabilitation in New Brunswick. Technology had evolved and patients were aware that now that I cannot do what I used to do, I guess I'm going to have to learn to use a computer. Over the years, Lise witnessed the progressive changes in her patients' comfort with technology as their discourse changed to how can I continue to use this technology despite my condition? Lise is still working at the Stan Cassidy Center for Rehabilitation, and for the last few years, she has focused on helping children and teenagers with various neurological conditions reach their maximum potential through assistive and mainstream technology in the areas of play, school, work, early mobility, communication, and home automation. Her patients are more than ever eager to explore how technology can transform the impossible into possibilities and improve their quality of life. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and Lise, you can go ahead and share your slides. And welcome to today's webinar.
There, I should not be muted anymore. Welcome everybody. I'm not sure if you can see my face, but regardless, we'll proceed. We're going to talk about environmental control technology today, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So I don't have any financial interest in any of I'm sorry, Homira, it says to start my video. Are people able to see my slides right now?
Yes, your slides look great.
Okay, so the video should be part of the slides. It's going to be fine.
Perfect.
Okay, so I don't have any particular affiliation with any of the products that you might see on my slides or anything that I mention. I think it's important for you to know that I'm not biased in any way. I'm an occupational therapist. I work on the pediatric neuromotor team at the Stan Cassidy Center for Rehabilitation. So I'm talking to you today from Fredericton, New Brunswick, and I'm very happy to volunteer to do this presentation because it's a topic I really enjoy. So what we'll cover today, briefly, we'll talk about what is an occupational therapist, why it's important to be independent at home, which task could be accomplished using smart home technology. I'm going to show you a video of someone using smart home technology. I find that when you see it live, it always makes a little bit more sense. It's more concrete. How do smart home technology and environmental controls work? Now, that's going to be a little bit of the techie side of it. I'm going to keep it as simple as possible, but it's very important to feel comfortable in knowing how it works so you know what to buy and what to avoid. And also, we're going to talk about how can someone control that smart home technology despite having some physical limitations or other sensory limitations. So, and feel free to type in any questions that Homira might ask, or any comments. If I'm going too fast or too slow, feel free to let me know as we proceed. So, an occupational therapist. Many of you probably have already an occupational therapist, but for those of you that may not know, OTs are healthcare professionals, and their focus is to help you solve problems that might interfere with your ability to do things that are important to you. So it could be anything. It could be about getting dressed, taking a shower, brushing your teeth, preparing a meal. It can be about moving around your house. It can be about being able to be successful and productive at work or at school. It could be about going out in your community and being involved in different activities, leisure-wise. It can be anything that is significant to you, and you say, I wish I could do this, or I wish I could do this with more ease. So I am an occupational therapist. I've been an occupational therapist for 35 years, and I specialized in assistive technology 22 years ago. And it has changed a great deal since then. And we are seeing some very interesting products right now in the market that I'm very happy to talk to you about today. Right now I work on the pediatric side of a rehab center that also treats adults. So I have colleagues who do the same job I do, but with our adult population. And it's a small center, but a very dynamic little center. So why is it important to be independent at home? Well, usually being independent means you still are in control of your life. And for most people, feeling in control means feeling happier. Now, with a neuromuscular disease, sometimes there is a fine balance between doing everything you can to stay independent and be independent, as well as not being your worst enemy and accepting some help when you need to have help, so that you don't exhaust your energy and you stay safe. So that balance is sometimes very difficult to achieve, but the independence is usually something that is very important to people. And that's true for children and adults. So sometimes to be independent means that we might need to change the way we're doing things. So it may be that we're using our body in a different way, doing tasks such as sitting down in a stool rather than standing up, or getting dressed on a chair rather than standing by the shower stall. It might also mean that we're planning our day better to save energy for what's important. It might mean using some tools or equipment. And one of those categories of tools and equipment could be environmental controls. And that is what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to go over a few definitions. Bear with me. It's just so that we understand what we're talking about. So environmental controls, when I say environmental controls, I could also say EADLs, or electronic aids of daily living, or environmental control units, or environmental control system, environmental control assistive technology. If you do a search on the internet, all these acronyms and all these words mean the same thing, and they're devices that allow the control remotely of electronic and electrical equipment in your home. These environmental controls are designed for people with special needs. So they might have very interesting features, but because they're designed for people with special needs, all the money invested by companies in research and development needs to be recuperated somehow. And so these devices tend to be a lot more expensive because of the limited market. Smart home technology, on the other hand, it's a system that are just like environmental controls, allow you to control your electronic and electrical equipment at home. It may also do more. It might do things like reduce your power bill and do some home security. And we can find it when we search for it under smart home technology or under home automation or under domotics. This is technology that was designed for everybody, for the mainstream public. It just happens to be useful to people without special needs and to people with special needs. And because it's a much bigger market, it tends to be much more affordable. So what we did at Stan Cassidy is that we started to look at how can what we find on the mainstream market, what you can buy at Home Depot, at Best Buy, at Walmart, online under Amazon, how could it be used for our population that might have some physical or sensory limitations? And we felt that it was important to look at those options because it was cheaper. Also because if it fails, usually you can find technical support locally, either at the store where you bought it, or because it's manufactured locally or widestream distribution, you will have somebody that knows about it that can go to your home and help you with it. Some of the environmental control units are manufactured in California, or the distributors are in the UK. And so they're good products, but when you need to have a problem fixed, you might have a time difference, or you might have to wait for repair units to be shipped to you temporarily until you fix your own. And so there's a time factor there. Just like environmental controls, there are very good variety of access options. And what I mean by access options is how you can control it, whether you use your fingers or your voice or other parts of your body. And we're going to talk about that in great details during the presentation. So because it's for mainstream and for the public in general, doesn't mean that it's necessarily harder to use. The other big advantage is that once you have it in your household, it's for everybody. Everybody in the family can benefit from using it. And so it's interesting to have something that suits your needs because of a condition, but that you're not different in what you're using because everybody else also enjoys using it. And as your needs change, either because you're improving with new medication or as your life situation changes, we see that a lot in children and teenagers as they get older, then it's simple to add on to what you might start smaller and build on what you have already installed. So I'm going to show you a video so that you have an idea of what I'm talking about. Noah has some smart home technology, and he's going to show you what he chose was important for him. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the different things he's using in his video as the video plays. So one of the things he has is a video doorbell. I'm ringing the bell at his front door. It sends him a notification on his cell phone. He sees me at the door, and he decides to open the channel to talk to me. There was a glitch with the app that he couldn't flip the image to see me, but he can tell who's at the door. Now he tells me I can come in, so he's gonna unlock his door. So he's got a smart deadbolt. He's right next to it, but he could be in bed, he could be in the bathroom, and it would still work. So he can unlock the door to let somebody in, or if he himself is outside, he can unlock the deadbolt to come in his house. Now the door opener he's using, when we installed that, at the time there was no door opener that came with a wireless option. It all came with a remote control, that little black thing. So instead, we installed a smart button pusher. So with his phone, he's controlling that little white box. And on his phone, he's making the button push the remote control. And he's got the same thing for his garage door opener. Now he's going to show how he's moving around in the house and turning his lights. And in the kitchen, he's going to turn the lights on. Now, one of his criteria was, if I can do it quickly and easily, it's worth getting it. If it is too much trouble or too hard to do, then I would rather ask for help and say, could you please turn on the lights and have somebody else do it for me? So we met his criteria of being able to do it easy. He's showing how he can dim the lights. And he chose to do it through his cell phone. Now he's going to show how, through the same system, he also chose to control the light in his bedroom, turning the lights on. So he is turning the lights on again for you to see. And he's going to control the blinds from his cell phone as well. He can decide at what level to stop the blinds, but for the demonstration, he's just letting them go all the way down. And then I asked him to turn the lights off. Oops, not the best idea for a video. Now, this is not smart home technology, but I wanted you to see how he integrated everything within his reach. So his dad, who's not used to installing the mount, is doing it, so it takes longer than if he was used to do it. And Noah can easily reach his cell phone, and he preferred to use his cell phone by direct touch. But for his tablet that he's using in school, and he could be using that to work as well, he's using the wheelchair joystick as a mouse. So his wheelchair has Bluetooth capability. And so he's driving with his wheelchair joystick. He pushes a button. Now he's in mouse mode. So he can actually answer emails. It could also be that he's using that for a cell phone. It's anything that's Bluetooth compatible. And he showed how it's quick to get back into driving mode. So for him, it's a nice integration of technology because he has his screen, his tablet, his mobility all within his reach, but also placed in such a way that it doesn't obstruct where he's going and what he's looking at. So those were a few things that can be controlled. So let's talk about what can be controlled, some examples. So you can turn the lights on and off. You can also dim the lights, and you can also change the color of your lights. You can control the outlets, the plugs, either by changing the plug itself in the wall or by plugging a smart plug, a little box that you would plug in the wall, and that little box is then where you would plug your lamp or your fan or your appliance. You saw Noah raise and lower the blinds, And there are different ways of doing this. You saw a indoor door opener. So what Noah chose, because for him it makes more sense to go in and out through the garage where the vehicle is. And if he wants to go in the neighborhood, he's sheltered from the elements by going first in the garage and then going into his driveway. The door that I rang was his front door, but the door he opened was the door to the garage. So I had a couple of steps to climb to get to the door. And he would have told me on the video, I can't see him from the door. I can hear him. He can see me and he can talk to me. All I can do is hear him. He was able to tell me, I'll open the garage door, come in through the garage. And so all I have to do is walk to the garage, and then he can unlock and open the door for me to come in. So those are often good options to consider, because then his access is sheltered from the, if you need a ramp or if you need a small lift, it's sheltered from the elements. Unlocking and locking the door, you saw that. And those can be separate. Some people want to be able to lock and unlock the door because they might be in bed when their support care person comes in. But they physically are able to open and close the door, and they choose not to have a door opener and closer, just to control the lock and unlock, just like we often see in an apartment building. The doorbell, you can choose audio only or audio and video. And of course, all your entertainment can be controlled by distance. Personal alarm or call bell, that's one that I get a lot of questions about. And there are some very simple and some very sophisticated solution. The very top left picture is a wireless door chime. And so if you keep the button, which is basically the doorbell, within reach in your bedroom or in the bathroom or on you, and you place the door chime where the person you want to alert is within your house, you can easily call at night or throughout the day. Some of the call bells are battery operated, so I've seen people carry it in their pocket, and so they can go rake leaves or mow the lawn, and the person inside can just press the button if they need something, and then the other person comes in and says, yeah, you rang me, what's going on? So that can be a very simple solution and very affordable solution that doesn't require a lot of technology. And then of course there are all kinds of other calling systems, from walkie-talkies to call bells meant for home, or all kinds of lifeline type of situation. And you can also use some virtual assistant voice. We'll talk about that later, but like the Alexa or the Google, to actually use it as a speaker if you have more than one. Remote monitoring, watching what's going on at home via camera, can be done for your pets, but can also be done if you're worried about somebody who lives alone. So you can, from work or from anywhere else, have a view of what's happening in the house, with their permission, of course. GPS trackers. So you have a picture of the key finder, the little tile there that we put next to our keys or glasses and things that we tend to lose in the house, and your phone tells you where they are, or you make them actually ring. Well, there are GPS trackers for further distances, and that is useful if you have somebody with dementia that might get lost, or if you want to make sure that your children are actually back home or made it to school. You can see on your device where the tracker is. It can be on their wheelchair if they're going around the neighborhood and you're worried about where they are. Climate control, so the thermostats, the air conditioner, the heat pump, electric blankets, all of this can be controlled remotely. You've probably seen some vacuum cleaners and floor cleaners that clean your house on their own. Well, some models will pick up a dry mess only, but some models will pick up also a wet spill. And some models you can control where they're going. So if you do happen to make a mess and it's too difficult for you to clean the floor and you don't want to leave it there because it could be a hazard, then you can bring your cleaning device to the mess and clean just that area. There are all kinds of appliances now that are considered smart, and by that it means that they do things that other appliances would not normally do, or that you can control them from a distance. Or a smart kitchen scale that lets you that tells you how much volume or how much weight you have in a container to make recipes. You have smart pressure cookers that you can start from a distance. The same with coffee machines. Smart fridge that can let you know when your food is about to expire. The picture on the very left is a picture of a feeder for a pet, so that you can remotely throw a treat at your dog or at your cat. And this was designed for people that want to do it from work, so that their pet, when they're alone at home, won't get too bored. But if physically it's difficult for you to actually get a treat and toss it to your animal, you can be right next to your dog and actually use something like this to actually give a treat to your dog that was a good boy and sat when you told him to. And then, of course, there are all the home security. The lights, the alarm system, smoke detectors can be smart, and automatic shut up for ovens. So let's think about now, how does all of this work? When we saw Noah, how does it connect to his cell phone? How does it work? So you're all familiar with infrared signals. Those are the signals that we used traditionally for televisions. Some air conditioner use that. I know at home, my heat pump uses infrared. And the way to know if it's infrared is that if you have a remote control and you're not aiming towards your appliance and it doesn't work, but it works when you're in line of sight, you know it's infrared. Infrared can sometimes bounce on walls, and you might be okay not aiming in the line of sight, but certainly it won't go through walls. Then there's radio frequency, RF. And that has some limited range, and we see that in our garage door openers and cordless phones. That's why you can trigger your garage door to open, or your cordless phone signal will be good for a certain number of feet, but after that you lose the signal. That's radio frequency. Then there's Bluetooth. And Bluetooth, we can get some smart light bulbs that will be Bluetooth. We can get some plugs or outlets that will be Bluetooth. So when it is Bluetooth, you don't need any internet, and you don't need any other hub or bridge or any interface between your smartphone, your tablet, and what you're trying to control. So if right now you have an iPhone or Android phone and you want to control a light bulb, you could just purchase a light bulb and nothing else, and you could control it. So when I go around and I want to show and demonstrate something, that's something that I've purchased, because I don't need to worry about connecting to the internet wherever I am to actually show how you can control a light bulb. Now, there are other things that require Wi-Fi. And sometimes it's just Wi-Fi, just internet. You don't need a hub or a bridge. Hub and bridge is the same. And so some smart appliances are like that. Smart TVs are like that. There are some smart plugs that are not Bluetooth, they're Wi-Fi. But again, all you need is internet. some toys, remote control toys, are Wi-Fi enabled. So the advantage over Bluetooth is that you can do it from anywhere. And many times devices will have both and you can choose. For example, I have a Bluetooth thermometer that I put in my cold frame to know if I need to open the little greenhouse, if it's getting too hot in my garden. So I know the inside temperature for my vegetables. And I chose to just keep it Bluetooth. But I could have made it possible to you to check the temperature from anywhere if I had purchased a hub. For the same little thermometer, I could have used a hub. And so some smart light fixtures and appliances require a hub. And a hub looks like a hockey puck. It's about the size of a hockey puck. And what it does is, just like with internet, you can control it from work, from your neighbor's house. You can be on vacation and turn the lights on and off so that people are not going to steal, because they're going to think that there's somebody at home. And one thing to know is that not all smart appliances or gadgets are compatible with the same hub, and not all hubs are the same. So Zigbee, Z-Wave, Insteon are signals and hubs that are used quite commonly, but they're not interchangeable. So when you do start to buy some smart technology, you want to know and read on the box what kind of signal it is to know what kind of other gadgets you might need to buy. So you might find a smart light bulb that is very, very cheap, and you say, wow, I'm going to buy this, but then it's not Bluetooth. So in addition to the price of your light bulb, you're going to need to buy a hub. So you would have been better off buying a Bluetooth light bulb if that's all you need. Now, the advantage of having a hub is that you can have many devices and it's not going to slow down your internet. And so when you start, like Noah, to have many light bulbs in his house and the smart blinds, he needed to have a hub. And we made sure that both his lights and his blind were requesting the same kind of hub, so we only had to purchase one hub. The hub connecting to his Wi-Fi and connecting to his smart appliances. So how do you control your home environment then? How do you actually control all these gadgets? So we talked about remote controllers already, and you know what they look like. So that's one option. And for some people, that's perfectly okay. They want to have a remote control for the television and maybe another remote control for a fan, or for the blinds, or for their garage door. So remote controllers are one way of controlling that home environment. Now, number two, it's not really a way of controlling it because it's automatic, but you can have things on a timer, or you can have things that are motion sensor. And especially for nighttime, or for walk-in closets, bathrooms, it might be the best idea, or staircases, to just have things on motion sensor, and you don't have to worry about turning it on or off. It's going to be automatic and it's going to be safe. A third way of controlling all this is to use your cell phone or your tablet. And so you saw Noah, he was using his cell phone and he was touching it directly with his fingers. That was his preferred way of using his cell phone. Now, with iOS, iPhone 13, and with most Android phones and tablets, but not all, you have to check, it's possible to use a Bluetooth mouse. And so you can actually use a mouse to control what's on your tablet or cell phone, and therefore control your environment. And when I say a Bluetooth mouse, it doesn't mean that it has to look like a computer mouse. It could be something that you're controlling with your head, with your feet. There are all kinds of alternatives. It could be a trackball. It could be a tiny, tiny, tiny little trackball that you hold within your fingers. The options are endless there. Usanoa uses wheelchair joystick to be able to control his tablet. Not all power wheelchair have that feature. Sometimes it's built in, sometimes it's an extra piece that needs to be purchased. More and more, the newer wheelchairs have it built in. That might be a way to control a phone or a tablet that then controls your environment. You can use your voice, of course, on Android and on iPhones and iPads to actually control the apps that control your environment. And some people will use switches, either built in the power wheelchair, the headrest, or external switches to actually scan through what's on the phone or the tablet. A fourth way is to use virtual assistants. And I bet that some of you that are listening today already have an Amazon Echo, the one that you say, Alexa, or the Google Home, for which you say, hey Google, or okay Google. Apple also has one that's called the Apple HomePod. And if you have an iPhone or an iPad and you can use Siri, because Apple also has an app that's called HomeKit, you can use Siri to control the app HomeKit, which controls your environment. So you have many, many options to do things by voice. A fifth way are smart buttons. And smart buttons like Flick, Logitech has one that's called Pop Home. The Flick is very small. It's about the size of a toonie. And you program it to do several things depending on how you touch it. For example, you could click it once and it would turn your lights on. Click it, double click it, and it would turn your radio on. And you could click and hold and it would do whatever, raise your blinds. So one button, only one place to touch, but multiple functions. If this and that, IFTTT app, that's an app, but I wanted to include it because I wanted you to be aware that it exists. So once you have technology installed at home, what If This and That does is that there are already pre-made commands that you can install on your device, or you can create your own. But it's always things that if this happens, then make this happen as well. So you could have, for example, that if your TV is turned on, when you turn on your TV, then dim the light in that room. The whole idea is to save energy, have fewer steps to do. So it could be that if I answer my phone, then mute my TV. So again, you're not going to have to find your remote control or find the app to control your television. You can have it pre-programmed. I have a colleague who has it that if he leaves work, his phone knows from the GPS that he's actually leaving the premise. It sends a text home saying, I'm coming home, I left work. So that his wife knows more or less at what time he's going to arrive. So it can be automation to make your life simpler. Number 7, we talked about environmental controls at the beginning. Remember, those are the things that are manufactured with people with special needs in mind. So there are some that are switch compatible. AbleNet makes one that's called a PowerLink, and Praetorian makes one that's called iClick. They're more popular with children because they're quite simple, on, off, of different small appliances with a timer or no timer. So less popular with adults and limited in what they can offer, but there might be very useful, for example, to control a popcorn machine or a blender and participate in some cooking activities, a mixer, hair dryer. Those are options that don't require Wi-Fi, don't require internet. It's just plug it in the wall and plug your appliance and you're good to go. Number 8 is for people that use communication devices, what we call AAC devices, like Grid 3 made by Smartbox or Tobii Dynavox. Built in the communication pages are some pages that are already programmed to control the environment, and they also have some environmental control units that are compatible with their devices so that it's smooth and easy to integrate. So when we talk about all these ways of controlling the environment, how do you choose? Well, it might really vary depending on your level of fatigue that day or throughout the day, and for other family members. So if we take, for example, the turn on the light, we saw that Noah was using the touchscreen on his app and the touchscreen on his phone. So he had the app to control it. But his parents are using what you see on the far right. When we installed the kitchen lights and the bedroom lights, what we actually did was not change the light bulbs. We actually changed the switch on the wall to make it smart. And so they have access to dimming and to turn on and off on the wall, the exact same configuration that Noah has on his cell phone. And then he could have chosen to use his voice and say, Alexa, turn on the kitchen light. So it's an example where different people or the same person at different times of the day could use different ways of controlling the environment. So you don't have to be stuck in just one particular access method. And that access method can change over time. You can add a virtual assistant to do it by voice, or you can have more and more people in the household using the app. It just is quite flexible that way. So then, how do you decide what to get? Well, for sure, you want to avoid buying something that you'll put in your closet and never use it, because you don't want to waste money, and you don't want to be frustrated. And you want to make sure that whatever you buy is going to be a good product, that it has good reviews, and that it's not going to fail. But you also want to make sure that it's not going to be a compatibility problem. You want to make sure that whatever you have now or in the future will be compatible with what you buy. And you want to have realistic expectations. You might be able to be more independent with some technology. You might be able to participate more fully, but you also have to know that technology can fail. There might be upgrades that will be needed or apps that will need to be reloaded, and that it might make you more independent, but maybe not completely independent. So if you expect too much of the technology, you might be disappointed. So you have to be realistic as to what it can do. So one way of deciding what to purchase or what to try first is to think about what you're capable of doing independently, but what do you struggle with? Or one good question to ask is, what is it that you're asking others to do for you that you wish you could do for yourself? And sometimes some of my patients will say, you know what, oftentimes I've asked so many times to turn the lights on, turn the lights off, turn the TV on, that I don't want to ask again, and I just don't ask. But if I could do it by myself, I would have done it. So that's a good question to ask yourself, or ask people that you know that have a neuromuscular disease, what it is that you wish you could do and not ask. And then you have to be realistic and think about what's your comfort level with technology, or are you eager to learn, or do you have support? What's your tolerance with things that may not work the very first minute you plug it, and you have to figure it out? Because that will dictate if you're going to go with something that might be a little bit more simple, or if you're going to dare to go with something that might require a little bit more work when you're setting it up. And the other thing that you want to ask yourself is, what do you own right now that you could use? You might already have a smartphone. And do you use it with ease? And is it easy for you? Is it successful? Do you drop it and can't pick it up? Do you find that you get tired? And that's when we need to look at how you would access the technology, what would make it the best way. Then you have to look at where you live. So what do you already have at home? Do you have internet? Do you have high-speed internet? What's your home accessibility like? Sometimes people tell me, I wish I could get out of my house on my own. And I have to be careful not to assume what they mean is opening the door, when what they mean is, I need a wheelchair ramp that I don't have. So opening a door to a top of a staircase that somebody cannot safely use, then you have to look at what your priority would be. Then do you have more than one home? Do you have a cottage? Is the person with the need a child who's going between mom's house and dad's house, or visiting grandparents or a babysitter often, where maybe it'd be worth having something in more than one place? And then what kind of technical support do you have? Either your family, your friends, your neighbors, or do you have any store that can help you set that up? There are tech support teams, companies that specialize in this. Best Buy as a geek squads that you can hire to install all your smart home technology and figure out all the ins and outs of things. So what kind of technical support would you need? And what are your financial resources? Do you have access to funding? Do you have any insurance? And are these good Christmas present ideas? And then you have to decide, well, what is it that I would want to have? And you can observe yourself, or throughout the day, think of all the things that we talked about: the lights, the blinds, the door openers, the locks, the doorbells, the sound system, the alarm bells, etc., etc. And think, if I had this, would that be useful? Would that be beneficial? Would I save energy? Would I save myself from getting frustrated? And then think about what are the tasks that you're the most interested in. And then also think about, if the reason that you are struggling, would technology be beneficial? I had a teenager who could not reach the light switches. And when we looked at his house, it wasn't so much that he couldn't reach the light switches, is that there was so much clutter, so much furniture, that the light switch was, there was a big sofa in front of each light switch. There was always something in the way. So the solution for him, the easy solution would have been to keep everything like this and add some smart technology, but really for his safety and in terms of being logical, removing some of the clutter was a better solution than jump into getting some smart technology that he could do from a remote location instead. So what I see in my practice is that children typically, we start with lights. They want to control the light in their room and the light in their playroom. And often we will do that either by remote control buttons or by voice, because we might not want to leave them with an iPad or an iPod or even a cell phone when they're in bed. And so to control the amount of technology they're exposed to, sometimes we will look at other access methods. Another popular one is to have some responsibility in their pet care. So it could be the treat distributor, but often it's also being in charge of turning the light on and off for their reptile or their fish. And that might be one of their first responsibilities. And of course, they want to have some control over which shows they're watching. Then in teenagers, we see the same, the lights, TV, and videos. We start to see some requests to have control over music, but often they will do that directly on their devices and not want to go with external speakers. But the blinds become important for teenagers because they want to sleep in the morning, and they want to decide when they get the sunshine in. But they also find that when they're playing their video games or when they're on their computers, the glare bothers them, and they as the sun moves through the window, they don't want to ask their parents constantly to change the height of the blinds. So that's a very popular one for teenagers. And then teenagers start to come home. Well, with COVID-19, that might be different depending on where you are in the country, but teenagers start to come home on their own or leave home on their own. And so having the door opener and the door lock on lock becomes something important to them. And another thing that I see often in teenagers is that as a child, they might have been okay with their mom and dad sleeping with them, or they might have been okay with having a baby monitor to be able to call through the night if they needed something like being turned or feeling cold and wanting their blankets moved or whatever. But they don't want that anymore. They want more privacy. So they want to be able to call for help when they need it. Or they might start to be using BiPAP machines, and the baby monitor is affecting the quality of sleep of their parents. So having some kind of a call bell is something that we see in teenagers. So they might be controlling some of their appliances through their smart technology. And then the call bell might be something completely different. We might be using something that they easily have access to when in bed, regardless of their position, and not have to turn on their phone screen for that. And then adults, although currently I don't work with adults, I've worked with adults for many years. Usually we add some smart appliances, possibly because people are more involved in household responsibilities, the if this then that app, and some climate control that usually we don't let the kids and teenagers control the temperature of the house, but and then some security controls as well. So if possible, if you don't own anything, try to do a trial. See if your voice is good enough for a virtual assistant. Go to a friend's house that has some smart home technology. Go to a store and ask to test it and try it. Maybe your local OT has some gadgets. When I'm traveling, I bring a smart Bluetooth light bulb and a smart Bluetooth plug, the two things you see on this slide. For less than $100, you can buy these two things. And so just for an introduction or to test the concept, I find that all occupational therapists should have this. So you could suggest that to your OT if you would like to try something. It's not very expensive. What we did at the Stan Cassidy Center for Rehabilitation, And I say we, but I should really thank my colleagues on the adult side. They took the initiative for this. We converted a room into a smart home suite. And that allowed us to test different products. So if you look at the little coffee table, you have both the Alexa and the Google Mini side by side. So we can test the difference with compatibility of different appliances. We can also let people try to see if their voice responds, if one of them responds better to their voice. So that's why we have both. And then we labeled everything so that we know what to call it. So I know to say, Alexa, turn on the kitchen light, because I know that that's what it's called. And that's something that is done on the app when you give it a name. So at home, it's not an issue. You will remember that your hair dryer, you called it your blower, or that this particular lamp, you called it your bathroom light or your hallway light. But in a place where a lot of people share the space, we've labeled everything for our little demo. And we have tested different products like a smart diffuser, and we have the little pet treat, and we have multitude of different access devices. So if possible, as I said, do a trial. Now focus on the technical support that you will have available, because you will need it. If you live in a remote area and you don't have access to tech support, nobody in your household feels comfortable, none of your neighbors feel comfortable, start small and try to go with products that are easier and simpler to install. Not that it's complicated, not that it takes a degree to be able to do it, but you want to avoid frustration and you want to make sure that it's going to work for you. And then plan for your future needs. Like I said before, children, teenagers, their needs change as they get older. They have more responsibilities, they want more freedom. And maybe with your condition, you might be expecting some deterioration. You might also be expecting some improvements from new medication. And in that case, then you want to be thinking about, okay, I'm going to start with just lights, but I'm going to make sure that what I buy for lights is going to be compatible for maybe later on I will want to control my blinds, or maybe later on I would want to add to have a doorbell. So you want to plan so that you don't have to buy everything new in the future. And then maybe my last advice is that it's difficult to think of summer in the winter and to think of winter in the summer. This is my house in the winter and summer. And in the winter, and with COVID, unfortunately, we are stuck at home a little bit more. So things like banking and going to stores become more difficult. And so we have, if we're looking at smart home technology and it's the middle of summer, we might forget the reality of winter and the reality of what we might need in addition in the winter that is not as important in the summer, and vice versa. If we're looking at smart home technology in the winter, we might forget that in the summer, controlling the air conditioning is going to be very important. So just think of your situation on a work day and on a weekend, and according to the change of season as well. And that was what I had prepared for you today. By all means, I'm open to questions. If I did not answer your question during the presentation, I know some of you had submitted questions before, and one that I can remember is about if you have a hearing impairment. There are a multitude of devices that offer vibration or visual in flashing lights or notification on your phone. So there are assistive technology that you can make sure will give you the type of signal to compensate for the fact that you cannot hear, or if you have some hearing, it's just decreased, there are volume controls over a significant amount of devices as well.
That's excellent, Lise. This is actually based on the question that we received from an individual with Charcot-Marie tooth syndrome and has a sensory neural hearing loss. So that was very helpful. We also received a question in the chat box for you, Lise, is whether an individual who types very slowly with a virtual keyboard on their computer, but they can type quite fast with their iPhone. Are you aware of an app or a device that allows them to use their iPhone as a keyboard for their computer on Word documents or PowerPoint?
Oh yeah, I know it exists for Androids. Whether or not you can do that with your iPhone, I would have to look it up. I would suspect that yes, there would be a solution to this, that you might be able to use actually your iPhone more as the brain of your computer and an external monitor as a bigger view of what you're doing on your phone.
Yeah, I can connect you with that individual after today's
Okay.
webinar as well, if you want to look into it. This
Yeah.
question was around a family member had messaged that their toddler has SMA type 1 and they've received two medications called Spinraza and Zolgensma, and they wanted to predict or have a better understanding rather of what types of equipment or technology supports they will require over the course of their lifetime. Is there some predictions that can be made?
That is a excellent question and a very difficult one to answer because the medication is so new that our toddlers with SMA type 1, we've never seen them as toddlers before. And what we see now is that individuals will have different response to the medication. Some respond extremely well and actually progress in their milestones in ways that we did not foresee. So we do have some toddlers with SMA type 1 follow that the Stan Cassidy Center, and we are amazed at the progress. So until we have more years behind us to know in general what happens with those children, right now it's a crystal ball. We really have to go with what we're observing as time goes by, and in a few years we'll know more, but right now it's too new. We do not know. It's very exciting time.
Great, thank you. The next question here is whether there's one piece of equipment or technology that you would recommend for people with neuromuscular disorders. Do you have one recommendation?
Well, I hope that the little questions I ask at the end in thinking about what is important to you, what are the tasks that are meaningful to you, and what do you have already, and how to select. I hope that answered this question because it will depend on you as an individual.
Great. Another question is from an individual with myotonic dystrophy type 1, and they live at home alone, and they wanted to know about whether any supports are available for opening kitchen cabinets or a bathroom door. Is there anything that can be done?
So bathroom doors, yes, you can get a door opener for bathroom, for an inside door. Like it doesn't have to be a door that is sealed to the outside of the house or the apartment. So that is absolutely available. As far as opening kitchen cabinets, there are different gadgets for the kitchen. They tend to be extremely expensive. There are ways of lowering the cabinets manually or like what hydraulics or by a remote control so that the whole cabinet will move up and down. That exists. It tends to be extremely expensive. A solution that some people select is to keep the things they use the most within reach in one location of the kitchen and possibly removing the cabinet doors for that particular area, or having things on a cart, you know, one set of what you would need, so that it's within your reach. So it looks more at the organization of your kitchen.
Excellent. This is from an adult with limb-girdle muscular dystrophy, and they wonder if there are apps for calling for help when they're home alone. So in case of a fall, or if they require any medical attention.
Yeah, so besides all the products that are like lifelines, there are different apps to call for help, but a lot of them will require a yearly subscription. So you have to be careful when you look at solutions online, because it seems quite affordable, but then you look at the fact that you need to pay on a yearly or monthly fee for it to connect. So one of the solutions that we've used is to have your phone, especially if you have an iPhone, you can have Hey Siri set that you don't need to press any button. So as long as you have your phone, or better even if you have an Apple Watch, you can wear your Apple Watch or have your phone somewhere near you at all times. And even if you fall and the phone is in your pocket, and you cannot reach it, or the phone flew a few feet away, or likely if you have the watch on you, you can just say, Hey Siri, and then say, call 911, or call my neighbor, and it will dial automatically, and then you can speak to them. So that's usually what we go for.
That's excellent. Well, I wanted to thank you again, Lise. This has been such a helpful and informative webinar, and for sharing your insights. I welcome everyone to email research@muscle.ca if they have any additional questions. And we'd also like to thank Roche and Biogen for helping to support educational initiatives like this one, and for their ongoing collaboration. I'll post top 5 key learnings from this webinar and make available the recording to this webinar by the end of the week. Thank you all so much for joining today's webinar, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much.